being in a place I feel like isn't enough anymore, especially with our access to smartphones, being connected to the internet. Like, you can go out into the middle of the woods and not have an experience of being in the middle of the woods, whether if you're plugged in and checking out Instagram the entire time. Where I feel like with running in a place, especially if you're able to disconnect, you don't really have a choice but to experience that place.
Hey folks, welcome to the latest episode of the Ecosystem Member Podcast. Today's guest is one of the people I had in mind when I first started to think about who ecosystem members should talk to. His approach to life is really inspiring, and I think he has a really neat connection to place. I'm extremely envious of the adventures he's had, and it was a real privilege to get some of his time to talk about those adventures. Rickey Gates is our guest today. He is a conceptual runner, which he explains exactly what that means in the episode, as well as a guide, writer, and photographer. If you follow the running or trail running communities, Rickey is probably a very familiar name to you. He's also made national headlines for his unique projects that bring new elements to the running experience, like the 3,700-mile TransAmericana run across the U.S., his Every Single Street project in San Francisco, and UltraTraining, which combines train riding and running. His current project is about finding and documenting the 50 classic trails of America. We talk about all this and more, and to further reinforce how good of a dude Rickey is, he did this recording while recovering from a cold. Please make sure to head to our Substack page at ecosystemmember.com to see the post for this episode. It has all the links to the projects discussed, including the TransAmericana documentary, which is an absolute must-watch. While you're there, you can sign up to our Substack newsletter so that you get posts like this for every future episode, as well as the occasional editorial piece from me. As always, if you enjoy this episode and you're watching on YouTube, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. If you are listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please leave us a 5-star rating. Without further delay, here's the latest episode of the Ecosystem Member Podcast with Rickey Gates. Today on the Ecosystem Member Podcast, we are excited to be joined by Rickey Gates, conceptual runner, guide, writer, and photographer. Thanks for joining us today, Rickey.
Thanks for having me.
So I'm really excited to chat with you. I've listened to a lot of interviews that you've done in the past, and I think you're a really thoughtful guy. And so I kind of want to start with the theme of the interview and something you have on your website. So you write, I had the good fortune of being born in the mountains and brought up interacting with this planet in a manner that has brought me both joy and understanding about myself, my fellow humans, and this delicate spaceship that we share. So can you expand on your relationship with nature, how you view that relationship?
Yeah, so kind of expanding on that, I grew up in Aspen, Colorado. It's a place that's oftentimes synonymous with an immense amount of wealth and opportunity. We grew up with one of those and not so much the other. We grew up with the opportunity and not so much the wealth. But it's a wonderful place if you're able to tap into certain resources that you're able to get out and experience amazing things. So I grew up using the Aspen Alpine Club, which was a youth organization getting out onto the trails and into the mountains from an early age, and then also on the cross-country team in high school. My coach moved to Aspen because of the mountains, and running was certainly his passion. But he insisted that we get on the trails at least 2 or 3 days a week, which was just, such a huge, looking back on it, such a huge opportunity, and set me on the path that I'm still on today, almost 3 decades later.
So that path we mentioned in the intro, you're a conceptual runner. Maybe it might be good, one, to explain conceptual runner, and then maybe what are some of the benefits and downsides or unique challenges and opportunities with being that as your, I guess, one of your primary means of exploration of the earth.
Yeah, so the term conceptual runner, that was coined by a friend of mine. He's an artist out in San Francisco. We've had a lot of conversations about my art and his art, and I don't think I would have come up with that on my own, but kind of like a conceptual artist is someone who just kind of bends the normal concepts or the mediums of art to convey an idea. And so I feel like with the running that I've done over the past several years, I'm sort of trying to do the same thing. Kind of bend what people perceive as running and bend what people perceive as art. Kind of the two things there.
Well, what about bending the ideas of how people think about running and art? Why do you feel the need to pursue that? Why not just go around on Strava and try to get fastest known times everywhere? Like, why did you need to add the extra element or extra layer to it?
I got into running first to experience the trails, but really it was, as for so many of us, it's a race-based, time-based experience and distance. It's very, binary, pretty dry, if you think about it. I did 3 miles today. I just remember, how much of a driving force that was for me, and I don't want to take anything away from it. Doing 3 miles or 5 miles, being so proud when I did my first 7 mile run, or like breaking 20 minutes in the 5K for the first time, or breaking 5 minutes in the mile for the first time. All of these are, they're highly motivating, but like there's little there that's actually representing uh, the the interface of the human body and the ground that we're treading on, and the beautiful spaces that we get to pass through in the physical experience of elevating your heart rate and getting out onto the trails or onto the roads and pushing yourself. So the race aspect of running was very central to who and what I was as a runner for a very long time. I would say probably 18 years or so. And then I just kind of started getting interested in what else running was providing to me. And for much of it was the experience of travel, the experience of meeting other people. I raced in Europe for 3 years, 3 consecutive summers, and to me that was just like the most wonderful opportunity. It was first and foremost a way for me to travel around Europe and meet new people and experience different cultures. And second of all, it was about racing, about winning, or getting onto the podium or whatever it might be. And so that's kind of when I started to think about running in a different way, and then simultaneously, it was around that same time that I really started focusing on moving swiftly through more challenging terrain, specifically around the Aspen area, going into class 4 and class 5 terrain, and really allowing myself the proper meditation of I call it forced meditation, being in a scenario where you're not able to think about anything else other than specifically that thing that you're experiencing right at that moment, in large part because it's dangerous to think about anything else. So those were the kind of the two things that sort of got me interested in thinking outside of the box, or what I call thinking beyond the bib, and started thinking about other ways that I could use running to explore bigger ideas and bigger curiosities to me. And so that's when I came up with the idea to run across the country, and to definitely not do it for a fast time, but to do it in a way that was interesting to me in terms of exploration and meeting people and exploring parts of the country that were more foreign to me, even including a small section of my run across the country on a stand-up paddleboard going across the entire state of Alabama, on the Tennessee River. So just stuff like this, exploring human movement in a way that seems much more natural than hitting stop, the start stop button on your watch, and measuring exactly how fast it takes to go from point A to point B.
So I want to talk about some of the projects, TransAmericana and some of your other ones specifically, but you just talked about some of the ideas from the projects being about going beyond the bib. So how do you get these ideas, and then how do you translate them into a project? Like, are you sitting there and thinking about something and then says, "Oh, this is how I can make this a run," or is it like about compelling entertainment? Is it about like the physical challenge? Like, what sparks an idea for one of these projects that we're going to talk about in a minute?
Um, yeah, just as you're asking this, I mean, there's a couple things that are certainly questions for me. Like, I've been a professional runner for the past 2 decades, and that's certainly an element in wondering about these things. Like, how do I, uh, for lack of a better word, how do I keep this going? At the end of my, what I considered what it was the end of my racing career, like I still wanted to be a professional runner. I just didn't want to toe the starting line all the time. And so that's when I pitched running across the country to Solomon. And if they were behind it, great. I was kind of at a point in my life and in my career that I was going to do it anyway, with or without them. But it was just something that was really interesting to me. For that one in particular, I'd read A Walk Across the America by Peter Jenkins. I read that when I was a teenager, and so that was always something that was really interesting to me. Sort of combining narrative with sociology and a physical experience of being out in nature every day, sleeping in nature, and experiencing the people around you. So that's kind of how that idea came about. And, there was, it proved to be interesting and successful, and certainly interesting to me. And then following up that project, it was the first time I'd ever done anything of that magnitude. And I wanted to do something sort of similar again. And at the time I was living in San Francisco. And I started thinking in terms of like total miles, like how long that might take, and like how can I create an experience that's, 1,000 miles. And but in this case, how can I do that close to home? And so that I don't have to leave, at the time, my girlfriend, now my wife, for so long. And that's when I, looked at all of the streets in San Francisco and wondered how many miles of streets there were. And oh, this is going to be really interesting, is to run all of the streets in this city and just, explore what we might perceive as the mundane or the banal, and really dive into it and allow it to show me what it's all about, and disrupt my preconceived notions of what it might be.
Let's zoom in a little bit on that TransAmericana trip, which was an amazing documentary that you and Solomon collaborated on, or they at least helped you get distribution for it, of that 3,700 miles. So there's also the photography series that you did there that we'll link to. And so I guess going into that, did you have any preconceived notions, any hopes or expectations? Were they shifted? Did it confirm anything for you? Did it radically alter how you view America or the of nature or its people?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly tried beforehand to do away with preconceived notions, just because I knew they were all going to be challenged. I tried not to stick to any one of them too much. I can say, yeah, just a short list of things that I was amazed about, um, and there's things that you hear about from people, or perhaps people have experienced it themselves, but just the immense amount of generosity and kindness that I experienced going across the entire country, but certainly in some pockets in particular, going across the South, Arkansas, and then into the Great Plains, people pulling over by the side of the road and giving me money or giving me food and making sure that I was fine, just stopping to talk to me. Um, I look back on that with such an immense amount of fondness. I was amazed at how beautiful the Ozarks were. It's a mountain range that we that doesn't see a lot of traffic, at least not from people outside of the state or the immediate vicinity. Beautiful area there. Going across Kansas was so stunning. Um, Highway 50 going across Nevada, called the loneliest highway in America, was anything but. It coincided with around Western states, and so there was a lot of people that were returning back to the Rocky Mountains from Western states and stopping by to see me, which was really nice. But also just really beautiful. The sunrises and sunsets going through there, and the incredible scenery. It's a journey that I'd consider doing again, regardless of going across the country.
One of your newer projects, UltraTraining, which is a combo train and run journey that you did from Albuquerque to San Francisco, might be more manageable than going across the country. But you talk in that video about traveling with intention. So I'd really like to get your advice for people, both for runners and for non-runners, about traveling or moving through the world with intention. Like, what have you learned about that idea, that practice? Like, what does intentionality bring to that movement?
Yeah, I mean, it's so many different things. And to be clear, like, I've been traveling for 30 years and I haven't always traveled the same way. I've learned a lot over the years, and I can look back on some of the travels that I've done with a mild amount of disgust in like how I behaved or like how I went about things. And just as my time is now more limited with children and having so much travel behind me, I just think about things a little bit differently. These days, a lot of my travel is to pursue this project called the 50 Classic Trails of America. And in doing this, I'm going to a bunch of places throughout the United States and running trails and photographing them and writing about my experience and writing about the history, the ecology, the human history, the geology of these places. And my experience in these places has been so much richer because I've been reading about them as much as I can beforehand. The human history in particular and like recent ecology. For example, going to Big Bend National Park to run the Outer Mountain Loop, a 30-ish mile loop around the inside of the interior of the park, and just imagining people there, hunter-gatherers passing through there 10,000 years ago, which they have physical evidence of. Imagining it in that sense, and then also just imagining, how different the ecology was at the time, like different plants there, different animals there. It just makes the entire experience of being in that place so much richer. So that's part of my intentionality. I was just in New York City. I did a run around Manhattan and picking out certain things that I've decided to pay attention to on that run. It's a type of mindfulness, like paying attention to specific types of graffiti or trash cans, whatever it might be, the waterfront, there's a whole bunch of different things that we can pay attention to. You don't have to pay attention to everything, but zoning in on a couple things can make an experience so much more rich.
And so on that 50 Classic Trails of America project, which I think I saw on your Instagram, you announced that it's being made into a book, Rizzoli publishing it, I think. So it'll be a great thing for people to look out for in the future from you. So to make it into that book, what makes a trail classic?
So I'm working with two other guys on this, Andy Cochran and Ian McClellan. I met them just over a year ago. A mutual friend reached out to all three of us and informed all three of us that we were working on the same exact project, and if we maybe wanted to talk to each other before moving forward. And so we had a conversation, and it looked like everything lined up pretty nicely. We were pretty much all on the same page, so to speak, of what we were doing, and decided to work together on it, which has been a total blessing. And so the parameters that we discussed and agreed upon to kind of distinguish these trails from, say, the Appalachian Trail or the Pacific Crest Trail or the Tahoe Rim Trail, sort of longer format trails. First, can the trail be completed in a single day? by a relatively strong hiker or runner. So not necessarily running specific. It's the book and the project is certainly going to appeal more to runners because let's be realistic. If the Wonderland Trail is one of them, if you're going to do the Wonderland Trail in the day, you're probably going to be running it. But like the Devil's Path in New York State, which is 20-ish miles, and it's been a challenge that people have been taking on for several decades. I think a lot of people are not running that trail, and it's a strong hiker can do that trail just pretty much just as easily as a runner can. But can it be done in a day? So that's the first parameter. Second parameter is do all 50 trails kind of paint a broad picture of the United States in terms of ecology. We could do 50 trails that are just like iconic desert and mountain trails. But, you know, after you've done 30 of those, I think there's going to be some hunger there for other parts of the country. I've been on enough trails in the United States to just be completely awestruck by the terrain and the beauty, so that I know that like we need to include places that aren't your like quintessential wallpaper images of what trail running or what trails can be. So another spoiler is that we've got a trail in Florida, the Lake to Ocean Trail. I think it's about 60 miles. It climbs about 200 feet the entire time. But that in addition to having some mountain trails, we feel paints a much better picture of what classic trails in this country can and should be. And then the third parameter is with any one of these trails, can we say with confidence to a friend who's spending their own money on an airplane ticket and is spending their own time away from home, maybe taking a day off from work, would you fly across the country to do this trail? Is it that valuable of an experience? Is it like we like to use that word bucket list? Is it the bucket list trail? And with every one of these, we run the trail through all three of those, and that's how we get to the 50. Frankly, we've discussed like 70 or 80 trails, and it's been fun to kind of whittle it down to that 50. And we're at that point. We still have a year left in the project before it's being locked in with the publisher. We're at that point where like 48, 49, like, all right, like, this trail was really cool, but this trail is also really cool. And like, which are we going to get rid of one in order to put this trail on the list? And so we're at a really fun part in the project right there.
Yeah, I feel like you're already setting up the second book of like another 50 classic trails that you're already going to have a head start on.
Or at least an appendix.
Yeah. And so you've got these projects. We talked about TransAmerica, we talked about UltraTraining, and we just talked about 50 classic trails. You also create these running trips, Bus Run Bus, which is San Francisco to Seattle, I think, and then Hut Run Hut, which is Colorado Rockies, and also you've done it in Japan. Based on the Instagram images, there's a lot more than just running to these trips. Like, you guys look like you have a ton of fun, wide range, diverse group of people. Why did you decide to bring people out to these places in this style? Two, what is your thought process when you go into organizing these trips and bringing people together on this sort of adventure?
Yeah, part of my background is the restaurant industry, waiting tables and bartending. And for that, it's only partially about the food. It's so much about the environment that you're in and the server that's taking care of you and the entire, everything around you that is providing an experience. Like, we can go to the grocery store and get food and make something for ourselves at home or go through the drive-through and get sustenance. But sitting down in a restaurant is its own experience. And so I've got like 15 years of restaurant experience behind me. And when I started my hut trip, that's the first trip, Hut Run Hut, which goes from Aspen to the Vail area, 6 days, 5 nights, 5 different huts. Like I really wanted to bring some of that restaurant experience to the world of running, or at least my world of running, and providing an experience for people where it's not about a race. It's about being in a place and being with people and enjoying good food and watching the sunrise and watching the sunset. And that one to me is kind of a no-brainer. Those huts are absolutely incredible. The trails in between the huts are amazing. You know, if people's pocketbook can allow them to do that trip and to spend a night in Aspen, you know, everything about that trip is wonderful and perfect. I just like to kind of like help contain it, and make people feel safe. Other trips that I put together, like the bus trip from San Francisco to Seattle. This is the fourth time I've put this trip on, and it's been different every time, different location every time. I've done Alaska and then kind of more national parks, San Francisco and back. That one is a little bit more of a wild experience, and one that I take on entirely because of the bus and the bus company that I'm able to work with for that trip. Green Tortoise, they've been putting trips together for I think 50 years now, on converted, used to be school buses, now they're coach buses. But I just love the aspect of cramming 20 to 30 people into this bus and experiencing a new place every single day. And yeah, there's just something really wild and simultaneously contained and uncontained at the same time for something like that. So it's just a lot of fun for me to be able to show people what I believe is like, you know, not my sole form of running, but like one version of running for me. It can be a lot of fun.
Yeah, they look awesome. And sort of on that theme, I read that you think that the greatest gift you've gotten from running is this idea of belonging in a place. So does that idea of belonging in a place, does that apply sort of equally across the board, like whether you're doing every single street in San Francisco or you're more in rural environments? Like, does your relationship with that place change depending if you're running on concrete or dirt? Can you talk about that idea of belonging in a place through running?
I know that we use this word a lot and it gets thrown a lot, but it's just a matter of mindfulness and being in a place. I feel like isn't enough anymore, especially with our access to smartphones and, you know, being connected to the internet. Like, you can go out into the middle of the woods and not have an experience of being in the middle of the woods. You know, whether if you're plugged in and checking out Instagram the entire time, where I feel like with running in a place, especially if you're able to disconnect, you don't really have a choice but to experience that place. Kind of going into that forced meditation idea again, or forced mindfulness. Like, especially if you make yourself suffer a little bit. And I don't think running has to be about suffering, but there's always an element of suffering with running, and I do believe that it's in that suffering that we really start to listen and feel. So yeah, to me it doesn't matter if it's concrete or if it's a trail or if it's off trail. I think that the element of movement and being mindful really allows one to be in a place with more connection.
So another thing I found on your website is your documentation of your collection of dirt. I think it listed 208 specimens. In an age of trinkets and cell phones where you can take photographs of everything, why have you decided to collect dirt?
Precisely for that reason. I've got them over here on the wall behind me. I think I'm up to like 235. I've slowed down over recent years. It's just it's just a way for me to appreciate a place. I got back from South America. That was my first time traveling when I was 19. I spent 5 months down there. I came back with a backpack full of ridiculous knickknacks that I had purchased from every location. And like almost immediately when they got home, they weren't as rich as when I had purchased them. So I don't know how I decided to start collecting dirt on my very first trip. But it was just kind of like something that's, yeah, it can't be bought or sold. I'm sure it can be bought and sold, but yeah, just something that kind of again made me pay attention a little bit more. And like, is this place worthy of the connection? Is this dirt? Like, is this, beaches are obvious, and then there's other places that aren't so obvious, and I go around and I curate little pebbles, and so it just makes me pay attention more, and I knew early on that I wanted to have record of the travels that I anticipated that I was going to be on, and this seemed like a nice way to contain that.
So to kind of bring our conversation to a close, talking about your Transamerica trip, your collection of dirt, these trips that you've led people on, you've talked a lot about mindfulness and intention. You've got 2 young children. What do you hope to sort of impart to them based on, your experiences about what it means to sort of be out on these trails, these classic trails, on these trips? Is there anything you're trying to teach them, or you're hoping to teach them once they get a little bit older, about like how to engage with nature or your place, like wherever you're located?
Yeah, I feel like this is where we get to let children teach us. And that's like the best part of being where I am right now and taking my kids out on the trails is you don't have to teach kids how to be mindful. Like they are looking at everything on the ground, like they are just finding everything so fascinating. So honestly, it's about watching my kids and seeing what they can teach me right now. And hopefully for as long as yeah, our relationship continues is them teaching me what I can see. So yeah, I don't know if that's a cop out answer, but that's where I'm at right now is like, what can they show me? Because we all notice these things when we're babies and when we're toddlers, and then our vision keeps getting more and more narrow. But a child's vision is just so wide. It's fisheye lens in HD all the time.
Yeah, no, I think John Kabat-Zinn, the mindfulness teacher, talks about it's easier to see sort of the Buddha nature in kids sometimes because they do have that open aperture. They remove the sort of filters that us as adults have sort of built in over time. So I think that's a great way to end it. So thank you so much, Rickey, for joining us today. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks, Rick. I appreciated our conversation.